All right, Parshat Pikudei, last portion of the book of Shemos, the book of Exodus. Usually the portion of Vayakel and Pikudei are read together, which makes it for one of the longer readings, and then you might have an additional reading like we had on Shabbos. We have this Shabbos, so it could be the Torah reading is extraordinarily long, and then compounded with the rabbi's sermon, it turns into a high holiday sermon service. But
you've got control over that.
If you want,
make it 10 minutes.
If you want, I could. If you want me to cut short the portion, I will. But this year, Vayakel Pikudei, the layout of the calendar of the holidays, it is separate. So, Pikudei, if you're paying attention to last week's Torah portion, seems very much the same as last week. The difference is that last week we read how they made the Mishkan, they built the materials, and this week we read about how they built the Mishkan and how they made the clothing for the high priest. So the lesson we're going to we touched on this on Shabbos. The lesson that we are going to focus on today is Rashi says addresses every basic question staring you in the face. The question is staring you in the face, and he doesn't address it. Either number one, he answered it already, or number two, it's not a question. Obviously, you're misreading. So you're missing something. And rule number two of Rashi is that the header of Rashi, the title of Rashi, is also very important. All right, so we're going to talk about psychology a little bit. And people love to talk about themselves. I mean,
you, not me. Somebody asked.
Like the famous joke, guy goes on a date with a woman, and he spends 1 hour speaking about himself, 2 hours. After 3 hours of speaking about himself, he tells the girl, "How rude! Here I am, 3 hours speaking about myself. Now you can speak about me." Right? And when we speak about ourselves, we usually don't speak about the mistakes we've made and the things we've done as we messed up. Usually we speak about our success stories. Came home, my son told me I hit a home run. Right? I'm sure he was up also, he got out, he struck out. He didn't mention that.
You saw the thing with Juan Soto.
Juan Soto, no.
Well, he was at spring training.
Okay.
And one of the people was heckling him. He said he's overpaid, he's overrated. So he comes up to bat, spring training game. What does he do? First pitch, hits it out of the ballpark, right over the heckler's head.
Wow. See, there you go. So we all have a story about our success, and there's a fascinating talk about children's self-esteem, which is really good stuff. This video is quite old already. It's 20, 30 years old already. But the lesson is very powerful. In it, he says, in life, we all have chips, like poker chips. A kid goes to school, and the more self-esteem he has, the story he has about himself, the more poker chips. So a kid has a lot of self-esteem or a lot of poker chips. When the teacher will ask a question, ask the kids to raise their hand, and he'll raise his hand. And even if he says a wrong answer or even a ridiculous answer, it's okay because he has so many poker chips. Right? He has the story he tells about himself is a good story, as opposed to the kid that's not as sure of himself, and he might even know the right answer, but he's afraid. He's afraid to look like a fool in front of his peers. So he won't raise his hand. And he continues how sometimes a kid will mess up, and the father will come home and scream at him, berate him, and all that. And the kid lost all these poker chips, and the father might go later and apologize, but it's too late. So we all have the story we tell about ourselves, and the story we usually tell about ourselves are the good stories. We don't like remembering the bad stuff. If you only remember the bad stuff, I have a business card in my office for a doctor. Right. Most normal people like to, I don't know if you're allowed to use the word normal, Regular people can't use the word regular, right? Homo sapiens, they can't use it. All right. They enjoy speaking about themselves, and if it's a story where they're successful, they'll tell the story more than once. So much so that the family member will be like, oh, here he goes again. Yeah, the Passover story. Oh, that story. Why? Because we like to repeat a story of our success.
That's why we assign numbers to the stories.
And you're lucky because we don't remember them, so you could repeat
Exactly.
them all the time.
Exactly. That's why I love this the congregation. Well, you took him on the joke in prison. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
23.
Exactly. You have to know how to tell a
Nobody
joke.
laughed.
Right? You have to know how to tell a joke.
Bad jokes.
All right. So the plain question in this parsha and effects last part. It's the question is both it's on both this parsha and last parsha, which is why the need for the repetition. You could look at text number 1 is a very long text. It basically talks about how the Jewish people did everything that Hashem commanded them to, and they built, and they hacked, and they clapped, and they sewed, and even Jewish people, maybe they're not the most handy, whatever it is, but they had nothing else to do with their time. There was no TikTok, right? There was no Netflix. What do they do the whole day? They learn Torah and they build the Mishkan. That's it. So
Imagine what would happen if they had the internet back then.
and maybe that's why they stayed in the desert for 40 years. But they started.
They did have GPS.
They started the construction the gathering the materials for the construction of the Mishkan the day after Yom Kippur, which is the 11th of Tishrei. They completed the construction, everything, all the materials, on the 25th day of Kislev, which is about 2.5 months. Okay, 2.5 months they had built everything, which not bad.
And they didn't work on Shabbos.
And they didn't work on Shabbos. What are you making faces?
They didn't have any, of the local workers helping them. That manana.
This wasn't Florida where you have famous for your work ethic. No, they worked at it. So usually the famous question is, when the Jewish people do whatever Hashem says, what does the Torah say? The Jewish people did whatever Hashem says. In fact, this Shabbos we're going to read the portion of HaChodesh. What's listed in the portion of HaChodesh? Well, we have the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh, the blessing of the new moon, and then the Jewish people are commanded to take the lamb 4 days before, paint the door, all that stuff. You think the Torah tells us, and the Jewish people went and took a lamb? No. It just says the Jewish people did whatever God said. And unless there's reason to believe they cut something out, we take the verse literal. That is, the Jewish people did whatever God said. Very simple. So the obvious question is here, why? Why does the Torah repeat? This is one of the questions that are addressed by many commentaries. What is the reason the Torah is repeating the things that don't seem necessary? And so the Abarbanel, who lived through the Spanish expulsion. I think he went to Italy. So you look at text number 2. Let me get past text number 1. Text number 1 is a monster here. Okay, in text number 2, he says the question is most acute in these Torah portions. First, Moshe tells the Jewish people, every wise-hearted person among you shall come and make. Then the verses go on to list everything they were commanded to build. Then the Torah goes on to describe the actual construction. Should have been enough for the Torah to say. He says, the Jewish people did it. What's the need? And the crazy thing is, we know by now, because you guys are all constitutional, biblical scholars, right? I sit among prestigious company here. You guys know the Torah doesn't repeat itself. And if the Torah repeats itself, there's a reason, right? Like, for example, the famous Torah, it seems to repeat itself 3 times by cooking a kid in some mother's milk. The rabbis learn out. Each one teaches something different. Number 1 is you can't benefit from it, you can't eat it, and you can't cook it. That's the but why is it a question? Because normally the Torah, and think about it, how complicated are the laws of kosher? Very complicated. And what do we learn out from there? only from loisav ashal gadiba chaliv. You should not cook a kid in his mother's milk. And Shabbos is learned out. The laws of Shabbos are learned out from the placement of the construction of the Mishkan on Shabbos. And there's so many things we learn out just from the fact they were placed and hinted. I've always used this example because it's a tremendous example. The famous story of Jewish people walking through the valley, and the Amorites wanted to kill them, so they hung out in the cave. Remember, I told you this story recently. They hung out in the cave, and God made a miracle that one mountain that had caves came close to the other mountain that had rocks jutting out and killed the enemies of the Jewish people. Jewish people walked by, and they only knew because flood waters came down the mountain and washed out all these limbs and everything else. And that miracle, which is a crazy miracle, mountains moving, and all that, is based on a reference to the Jewish people saying a song of praise to God. So there are so many instances in the Torah where, another example. You can go through an integral part of daily Jewish life, putting on tefillin. Torah doesn't tell us anything about putting on tefillin. It just says bind a sign in your hand. You could keep going on. Torah is very, 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 cheap and concise and compact, and all these different laws. Yet, when it comes to this, the Torah say first of all what you should do. That Moshe commanded them. That they built it, and they built. I understand Jewish people are not in construction. Torah wants to make a big deal. Look, Jewish people can't build something. Right? Maybe now it's coming over to Passover time. Did the Jewish people build the pyramids? Did they not? Right? There's a whole archaeological argument if they did or they didn't. You saw, I don't know if you saw the news recently, but the pyramids, they realized they have some kind of structure under it. You saw that? Like a staircase down. They realized that the top of the pyramid is a lot more on the ground. All right. So that's question number one. Question number two is, knowing what we know, that the Torah is so uneasy to use words, how come Rashi doesn't say anything? You would think Rashi would say, the reason why the Torah repeats itself is yada yada yada. The only thing Rashi, if you're learning the Torah, the portion this week, is very, very few Rashis. It's just text. Here in text number 3 is one of the few Rashis. Rashi says on the verse where it says that every person who wanted to donate, it says nediv liboy. Here, text number 3. It says nediv liboy. It says generous hearted. It says because his or her heart motivated them to be generous. They are called generous hearted because they were motivated to be generous. And then the second part of Rashi says, by the way, guys, I already explained everything in the portion of Teruma and Tetzaveh, so I'm not going to go over it again. If you want to know, go back there. Is it? And he expects you to know. A rule of Rashi. If you don't get it, then go back.
You still don't get it.
What's that line, right? Rule number 1, mom's right. Rule number 2, if she's wrong, rule number 1. This question is for an adult, because by us, we say a story once, and we get sick of it, right? How many times can you watch the same movie? You watch it once and so, right? But me having a car, this is we live modern times, with a DVD player inside, and the kids watch the same video over and over. They don't switch it. They could watch the same video. There's some of my kids' videos I know by heart, and I never seen the video, just from listening. Right? Because by kids, when they like it, they're excited. They hold on a second. They like to repeat the story. Yes, Larry, what are you going to say? This better be a good.
I say that somebody is not buying them new videos.
Yeah. That somebody's me. My kids decided, realized the library has videos. So the more important the story is, then the more they're going to repeat it. The more the kids enjoy it, the more they're going to repeat it. So now let's take a step back and realize what the Mishkan is. and we're going to pull in another question and answer. One of the questions which are tied into this is chapter 1 of Genesis is how many verses? 30 verses, I think. 33, I can't remember exactly. It's been a while, right?
Yeah.
It's been a while since we're already finishing Exodus. We started Genesis after Simchas Torah. We're pushing Pesach, so it's been a while. 6 months ago.
Got a short memory.
Yeah, exactly. In the first chapter of Genesis, we cover the creation of the entire universe. All the cosmos and the sun and the stars and the Milky Ways and the galaxies and all the celestial bodies and the billions and trillions of species, of entities, of macrocosm,
Even the Klingons.
whatever it is.
Romulans.
Everything, right? For your nerds out there, Middle Earth and this, right?
There you go.
There you go. Star Trek and Star Wars, whatever they discover, right? And scientists keep discovering, and what does God fit that into? One chapter, right? Think about it. It's a little bit crazy. Right? It says on the fourth day he created all the celestial bodies, and he created the sun and the moon. And that was in that line, he created all the celestial bodies. You have NASA, right? You have the whole explosion to infinity and beyond. In this parsha, what are the Jewish people doing already? Yeah, they're building a nice house. Yeah, it's expensive wood overlaid with gold, and they're building. Yeah, very, 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 very nice. But if I asked you what's more impressive, the construction of the world or the construction of the Mishkan, you would say creating the world, right?
It was a little bit.
I mean, could you imagine that on Shabbos we say Mikdash on Shabbos, we testify that God created the world. Imagine right. Imagine we went to God, big deal, He created the world. We created a Mishkan. We're even, right? I mean, so if you want to say the Jewish people did it, fine, but 5 portions. It's 5.5 portions, the Mishkan. You know what? It's Turma, Tetzaveh, Vayakel, Pikudei, and half a Kisisa. 5.5 portions of the entire. That's out of 53 portions. And we're not talking about tiny portions. Like the end of Deuteronomy, there's some small tiny portions. Vayakel is 106, 10. We're talking about Vayakel, Pikudei together are 10 sides. Teruma's 5 sides. Tetzav is 4 sides. We're talking about 20 columns. It's the Torah. It's a lot. In most Torahs, a sheet has 3 columns. When you're rolling, you're rolling. Yeah.
It's like legal work. You get paid, hourly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's answered in Chassidus, and we're gonna tie it into here. The fact that an infinite God could create a finite world is not a big deal. He's God. He's called the Almighty, which means if He wants to create a finite world, He can. And obviously, when we get old, now Pesach's coming up, is splitting the sea a big deal? For us, it's a big deal. But for Him, it's a big deal. No. He says sea split, sea splits. Is it one miracle harder than another miracle? I mean,
It
No.
shouldn't be.
it isn't. It isn't. We see in the 10 plagues, what Moshe and Aaron is trying to educate Paro and the Egyptians is there is no such thing as too small for, the lice was very small. He said, it's too small. It's not under our dominion. There is no such thing as too small, too big. Everything is equally insignificant, right? So that God could create the world, and everything else, is that a big deal? It's not a big deal. So the Torah doesn't have to spend. Okay, He created the world. All right.
Man built the Mishkan.
Oh, but it's an infinite God built a finite world. Big deal. But that a finite man built a home in finite dimensions, right? It was 30 amot by 10 amot. For an infinite God, that deserves ink. That's a big deal. And this is why the Torah spends so much time talking about the Mishkan. Same thing over here. The Jewish people we're not in a good place when they got the commandment of the Mishkan. Whether you agree with the opinion that the commandment of the Mishkan was given before the sin of the golden calf to Moshe, or whether God commanded Moshe about the Mishkan, the tabernacle, after the sin of the golden calf. Regardless, when did the Jewish people get the commandment? When Moshe came down at Mount Sinai. The Jewish people were in a state of being a Baal Teshuvah. By the giving of the Torah, they were in a state of tzaddik, righteous or complete, awesome. Then they sinned, and then they were after that, by Yom Kippur, they were in the state of a penitent man, a person. So they're very, very eager to do something good for God. So they didn't just do it. What they wanted to do was they wanted to bring God back. Now the word Mishkan, by the way, doesn't mean tabernacle. I shouldn't say that. I don't even know what the word tabernacle means.
Oh, if you ask a Christian what a tabernacle is, he shows you a little cabinet like this with some artifacts inside. He says that's a tabernacle.
A sukkah. They think a tabernacle is a sukkah. I remember my old neighbor. We were building a sukkah, or it was up already, and she came over to me. She goes, "What's that you have on the side of your house?" My old house, 590. So, no, actually, it was the neighbor's mother, older lady. And so, trying to explain the holiday of Sukkot, sitting outside. She said, "Oh, yeah, I know that a holiday. Holiday tabernacles." I'm like, finally, someone knows what I'm talking about. So you go to people like, "Yeah, but you have to sit outside." Yeah, but you think I'm crazy? Some people are crazy. They sleep inside. Like Rabbi Davis from Hollywood famously put it. He said, "Anybody more religious than me is a fanatic. Anybody less religious than me is a heretic." Right? So I'm perfect. Rabbi Davis. It's great. It's such a phenomenal line. So the word Mishkan really means to dwell. With building a house, or this place, Hashem would dwell. Now that I'll ask a question, what's meant dwell? The Eibishter is everywhere. Hashem's everywhere. Right? We see text number 4. Alter Rebbe writes that it says Hashem says to the Navi, I fill the heavens and the earth. So what does it mean to dwell?
Dwell means to stop, actually.
To stop.
To stop or reach a pinnacle and come back down again. It depends on in automotive and engineering. When something dwells, it's in a state of stasis. It's dwelling. It's not moving.
Okay, not moving. Dwelling means you're staying here. Yeah. So the Alter Rebbe says this is in the commentary in this week's Parshat. Alter Rebbe explains like this. The answer is like this. A ho means a place where godliness is the fourth paragraph. And a ho means a place where godliness is revealed. This must be specifically in the lower realms. Now, what does lower mean? By Hashem, there is no lower, no high. The sun is not higher than the earth to God. Higher and lower means more godliness, and less godliness. So in this realm, in our reality, godliness is heavily concealed in this world, and it is filled with darkness. So what did Hashem want? Hashem wanted us to create a space, although He's very concealed, and although He's very hidden, and it's not obvious. He wants us to create a space where godliness is. That's what it means. And like the famous mimer that the Frierdiker Rebbe, his last mimer he sent out to publish, and the Rebbe would start off on the 10th of Shvat when the Rebbe would celebrate the anniversary of the Yartzeit of the previous Rebbe, and he would also say a mimer, celebrate the anniversary of him becoming Rebbe. He will also start the Chassidic discourse with these words, a verse from Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs. He says, I came to my garden. So what does it mean? It says Lagani. So it doesn't say Lagan to the garden. It says Lagani, to my garden, which means, it says, I came to the place to where I was originally revealed. Chassidus and Yiddishkeit and Judaism and Torah have an interesting view, different than what most people might think. Most people look at the world as a bad place, a corrupted place. And we got to try to survive or maybe perfect, or tikkun olam, the world is bad, we gotta fix it. Chassidus comes along and teaches the world is really a good place. It makes a big difference. If your starting point is the world's a bad place, then no matter what you do, the world's going to be bad. But if you say the world was good, the world's a good place, yet some people messed it up, okay. It's a lot easier to clean up, to organize, toys, mess. Everyone's invited to come to my house Shabbos afternoon, right?
I got my own mess.
Yeah, but it's much easier to organize when the things were already once upon a time organized. Yeah, they became cluttered, but now we're restructuring. We're putting things back, as opposed to you walk into the place and like you ever see the show about the people who are hoarders.
Orders.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, absolutely. Have you seen my garage lately?
But your garage is organized chaos. It's not. No. You don't. Have you ever seen this? Remember, flying. I'll never forget. I was flying back on a plane once, and I was bored. I shouldn't have been bored. Finished learning, so I was flipping through, and I came across the show Hoarders, and these people are mamish crazy. I mean, I'm sick. That's crazy. It's the wrong word. Sick, and their houses. I'll never forget. This one lady got all angry. They organized her house. She said, it's much worse. And you walk into the house and you don't even know where to start because the house it's terrible. So most people look at the world as the world is destroyed. We need a cleanup crew to come and just wreck the place. Chassidus comes and says, no, the world was a good place, was an organized place. What happened is we allowed the animals to run the zoo a little bit, and knock out all the books off the shelf and dump all the toys out of the buckets in the world, but it doesn't mean the world is unsalvageable. It's actually a beautiful place. What you have to do is you have to reveal the goodness that was once there. So the Medrash talks about that there were 7 people who chased godliness away. Like for example, Adam and Chava ate from the tree. God didn't like that. He said, "Okay, you stay there. I'm going to be here." Then Enosh started. Then Cain killed Hevel. God said, "I really don't like that. I'm moving further away." Then Enosh started idolatry. Finally, it came to a point where God says, "You're all the way over there. I can't. You guys are." And then Avram, the first tzaddik, said, "God, come back. So God took a step closer. Then Yitzchak. Then finally Moshe came and brought in, and the result of that was bringing God down on Mount Sinai. So, and that's our job. So, what does God want? It's interesting. What was the purpose of the Mishkan? If you look at the Parshat Kisisa, I don't know if you want to say the original plan, what the Jewish people thought was going to happen, that God was going to dwell amongst them. And they got very upset when they found out that that's not the case. But then Hashem tells Moshe, listen, tell the Jewish people, your heart's in the right place, but your hands are in the wrong place. Meaning, I have a very low tolerance to sin and to obnoxiousness. And when I get angry, Hashem tells Moshe, bad things happen. So it's better that I have my house and you have your house. But the purpose of the Mishkan is to realize God's dream, which is echoed in the Rashi in this week's Parsha. You see text number 6 on the words Mishkan ha'edus, the dwelling, the tabernacle, the dwelling of testimony. Why is it called a dwelling place of testimony? So one version is because the Ark of the Covenant, the Arei Ha'edus or Nabris, the Ark of the Covenant, inside the Ark of the Covenant was the tablets, the luchot, which are the luchos, the edus, the tabernacle, the tablets of testimony. But what was it testifying? It was testifying that Hashem forgave the Jewish people for the sin of the golden calf. So you can imagine, it wasn't just a mitzvah that Hashem gave the Jewish people. Listen, build, put on black boxes, build a sukkah, shake a tree, and a lemon. These are, I don't want to call them just mitzvahs, but they're mitzvahs that we gotta, get motivated. But imagine you make a mistake, right? Imagine, let's say, for example, a kid is accepted into Harvard, and he does something wrong, he does something really stupid. Comes to spring break. This is very appropriate because this is the week of spring break. Spring break, and everything's on video, and the administration of Harvard sees him doing something that they call unbecoming a Harvard student. I don't know what that could be, because in Harvard you're allowed to harass Jewish students, right? But let's say something, I don't know. What anyway, and they kick him out. And then this guy has a friend who knows the president. He goes to his friend and says, "Listen, please ask on our behalf." So the president of Harvard says, "All right, I'll give you another chance to come to class." Right? But there has to be you have to do certain things in order to be part of the school. That kid, if he's serious about being in Harvard, he's going to come and he's going to be very motivated. Right? He's not just going to go, these kids today, they're watching Netflix over here, they have their thing over there, they have ChatGPT, ChatGPT doing their work, and it's going to make sure.
That's AI.
Yeah.
By the way,
Yeah.
that GTP is in English. When it recognizes voices, it only recognizes English as far as I can tell. You get a phone call from a telemarketer that's a robocall, answer in Hebrew.
Okay. Next time.
No, today he was answering everything in Spanish. Hola. Dead silence.
They cut right off.
Beautiful. Anyway, so now you can imagine the Jewish people were very, very excited about the Mishkan. It was a chance to renew their relationship. It was a chance to bring godliness back down. Let's look in the Rebbe's words in text number 7. A little behind here. He said, the Rebbe says, the Mishkan and its vessels were of critical importance to the Jewish people, as they facilitated the dwelling of the divine presence among the Jewish people. This explains the great fondness both Hashem and the Jewish people had for the Mishkan. This is why the Torah lists all the elements of the Mishkan again and again in great detail. So now we have an answer to our first question. Why does it repeat itself? Because it's a big deal. And it's something we want to repeat. It's something we want to celebrate. That Hashem, gave the Jewish people a second chance. And he said, guys, I want to hang out with you. Let's make a man cave. Or so, what do they call it? Isn't that what the Mishkan is? Guys, let's get together. Someone from outside the Jewish people. What are you doing there? You don't understand. Right? You won't get it. It's a bad picture, by the way.
Yeah, what does that represent? Does that represent?
That's supposed to be the Mishkan, but
on this side.
that's supposed to be the altar where they put the animal sacrifice, but it didn't have a step; it had a ramp. The only problem is it doesn't say it clearly in the text. That's why. And the kiyar is a wash basin and it had spigots. It's not a good matter. Listen, not everything can be exact. I have to give you guys something to complain about. So now we understand why the Torah repeats itself. But we're left with the other question, which is, how come Rashi doesn't say anything? It's a great question and a great answer. Rashi should be there to tell us. How come maybe Rashi was on vacation?
He's entitled.
Yeah, by the way, if you would know how much he worked. Do you know he wrote this commentary to the Gemara for sure twice, maybe even 3 times? Do you realize how much work that is? Just go and sit and copy Rashi. I know what it means, because sometimes when I was a kid we'd get into trouble. Your assignment was go copy Rashi. You know what it means? For 1 page your hands hurting here. And he sat there and he did it a couple times, at least. Some people say 3 times. So now we can understand a little bit. We did this reference in what we spoke about on Shabbos, which is that Hashem loves the stories of our forefathers because it shows that there's something special. They totally gave themselves and they were totally invested into the mitzvah. So that we find that the story of Eliezer with Rivka is repeated. It could be found when Jewish people are, and they don't just do it; they're fully invested in it. Hashem loves it. And by the way, Rashi kind of hints to it, because in the title of Rashi, he says the generous-hearted. So Rashi is answering the question. He says, For example, I know a guy, his son's a crazy Panthers fan. They have season tickets, yada yada yada. So he was there when the Panthers won Game 7, and he was there. We had season tickets, and he was there, and he stayed there till 2 o'clock in the morning. They were partying and standing there, blah blah blah. And then he told me my son woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning because he wanted to be the first one to buy a hat or a jersey. That said, when you're a fan, you don't just watch the game. Everyone else just, very nice. I'm happy the Panthers won and so. But when you're fully invested in it, you speak about a lot. So Rashi answers the question. He says, when he says generous hearted, he says when you're into it, you don't just give. I got a call today. Lady calls me. Says, "Hi, blah, blah, blah. I used to go to your temple." I'm like, she thought she was calling some big. She was going through all the synagogues asking for money, and she thought it's a line, but she didn't realize which kind of synagogue. Like, who is this? Like, no, you haven't. Yes, I have. Okay. What do you get all different types of people calling. So Rashi says that when you're generous hearted, when you're invested, good things happen. It's a very nice story. There was a couple that recently got married in Israel. So they are originally from Montreal, I think. And so what happened was, anyway, so what happened was there was an Israeli kid came to learn with them. Was there for like a year and a half, 2 years. I don't remember. The kid's name was Ma'oz. Ma'oz is strength in Hebrew. And the family was there, but then went back to Israel. So the whole class, he was a very nice kid. And this guy Ma'oz was killed in the whole operation after October 7th. He was killed. So they reached out to the widow, to be Menachem Aval, and say, what was Ma'oz's famous for? He said he was very into learning Mesilat Yesharim. Mesilat Yesharim is the path of the righteous. Mesila is the path of the righteous. They haven't translated it in English. I don't know if we have it. I'm pointing. I think I have it. I don't think I have it. So, yeah. And online, yeah. So it's a book of Musar. It's a good book. It's good to read. So one of the women decided they're going to do a special printing, and they're going to give it out. They're going to distribute it. I think in Israel in memory of this Moses. So it's because this Moses is such a nice guy and he made such an impression, and he fought for the Jewish people. So now who's going to take it? There was a guy who was in their class, younger, but they were just friends. They weren't and he came to pick up the books to bring it to Israel, and yada yada yada. They ended up getting married. Meaning, when you do something good and you're invested in it, one thing leads to another thing, and good things happen. When you just do the mitzvah, I was just at a kashrut thing for Passover. Good time to plug. We're having a kashrut thing next Thursday for Passover. Next Thursday evening. I posted on the community chat. So the guy was talking about, eat this on Passover, eat that on Passover. So I said, I don't eat anything on Passover. It's like, what are you talking about? So he said, no, when it comes to Passover, my family goes totally berserk. But it's almost like a sign of pride. We don't need oil, we don't need this, we don't need that. It's 1 week. Everyone says you're crazy. Yeah, maybe. But when you're invested in it, it's the same thing with the sukkah, right? You put air conditioning in it. You don't just, I'm saying you don't just do a mitzvah. The idea is, this is a very powerful lesson. You don't just do a mitzvah. It's a commandment of God. Every mitzvah is your ability to connect to the divine.
So it is a mitzvah to put the air conditioning in the sukkah.
In Florida, 1,000,000%. In Florida, 100,000, 1,000,000%.
Yeah, but when you think about it too, is if we didn't here, any more than up north, they put heaters in theirs. But if you
we had heaters.
and it got really, really, really warm. I mean, you're supposed to be out there enjoying it.
Yeah.
How can you enjoy it if it's so hot that you can't even think straight?
It's a festival.
No, his sukkah's too cold.
Whatever. Well, listen, you're talking about me. It's 100 degrees in the shade. Look at this.
So Judaism is supposed to suffer. Usually people suffer sukkahs because it's too hot. I brought it to the other extreme, right? But it's a very, very strong lesson that we all can learn going forward. A mitzvah, there's really three ways to do it. One is you're just going through the emotions. That's not healthy. If you remember the story, I don't know if I told you the story before. I know I have. The Baal Shem Tov would teach that every experience we have is a lesson in the service of Hashem. One time he's walking with his students. It was in the winter in Ukraine, and some goyim, they carved into the ice a big cross, and they asked the Baal Shem Tov, how could this experience be a lesson in the service of Hashem? Amen. So the Baal Shem Tov said like this. He said, Mayim water is compared to Torah, and water is the source of life. But when our observance becomes cold and dead and indifferent, it can freeze over, and it can even be used for things anti-God. That's the message. As Jewish people, Asher bachar bonu mikol ha'am, Hashem chose us from all the nations. When you do a mitzvah, it's not, oh my God, have to do a mitzvah. You have this tremendous opportunity to do a mitzvah. You have to be invested in it. And good things happen. There's a story Chabad of Thailand told recently. This guy, he would come from Israel to Bangkok, and he had a connection in the airport. He'd always bring supplies, food and everything else, even though it was way overweight and way over everything, but yeah. So the next time he was going to Bangkok, a guy comes like 600 pounds, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? You tell it, like Ira, I asked him to borrow the car for one day. I returned it a week later. Tell a Chabad guy he could bring 50 pounds, he shows up with 600 pounds, right? You know what I'm saying? So he shows up, Mitamal, the guy by the airport says, I'm sorry, I got screamed at by my superiors, I can't do it anymore. The guy's stuck at the airport. All the stuff, what he was gonna do. Some lady comes and hears what it's for, Shimach Sazai, tiki, and done. Anyway, so this lady, a little while later, was traveling with a group, and she comes to Chabad in Bangkok. Oh, it's so nice of you to come, and they give her special attention, a good piece of chicken, right? And she says, how do you like Thailand? He says, I loved it. I only had one bad experience. He says, what happened? So he says, I get this story about how old, I realized how old the story. I was traveling and I left on a bus with a group of my Israeli people. On a bus, 9 rolls of film. So and the rabbi says, how many rolls of film? 9. 1 second. He goes to his office, he comes and picks up a bag, 9 rolls of film. What happened? This guy in the bus realized it, and it was in a totally different city. Sorry, it wasn't it was not Timbuktu. Timbuktu is a different country. Whatever it is, some Tai Chi. I don't know. Whatever it is, what I know. And he said they left it on the bus. So he said, let me give it to the rabbi. And the Chabad rabbi said, oh, they're probably going to go back to Bangkok. That's where all the Israelis go. The Chabad rabbi had it sitting in his office for a while. When you do a mitzvah and you're invested and you're excited, good things happen. One good thing happened, it leads to another. There's some people kvetch and complain about the matzah. It's expensive. It's hard. It's and that. We don't eat matzah from Purim until Pesach. Why? Because you want to be excited about the mitzvah. A lot of people you kvetch and complain about Pesach and cleaning and this and that. I was just talking to Tyrell on Shabbos. Tyrell says, I love Pesach. You enter into a whole different world. Everyone's around. It's a whole schedule. You go to sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning. We wake up at 11 and you feel like you woke up early. It's a different world. It's something exclusively Jewish. You're doing a mitzvah. You're living 100% like a Yid. And that's something that we have to treasure, because a mitzvah is your ability to connect to the divine. Let's learn a story from. Read a story from Rabbi Posner, text 11. Ooh, wow. Ooh, we're behind. Sorry. We said this already. Here, text 11. Oh, sorry. So Rabbi Posner says saying the story. So he came to America. His grandmother came to America, and they were harassed. And it wasn't easy being religious Jews in America in the 1920s. The previous Rebbe came to America in 1929. Now, a lot of people know he came to America. He escaped Germany in 1940. That's true, but the previous Rebbe made a world tour. He went to America. He went to Israel. The only Chabad Rebbe ever to go to Israel. He was in America. He was in New York. He was in Chicago. He was in Baltimore. I think St. Louis also.
There's Jews in Baltimore?
They're Jews. Yeah, could you believe it? And she said, how am I gonna raise my kids in such a hard land? And she started crying. The Rebbe smiled and he said, "It is a hard land." He says, "But in this land you will raise good Yiddish Chassidish kinder, good Jewish Chassidish children." In later years, my grandmother was no longer encumbered by recent memory. She told the story with its full emotion. And 10 minutes later, she told it again because she had not missing the slightest detail and the slightest emotion. She would always end the story by saying, "But I did not let that blessing sit. I put it to work." I don't think she lost her initial enthusiasm. And this is what the repetition of the portions are saying. When you have this opportunity to do something so tremendous, and again, Alter Rebbe talks about this in Tanya, that we often don't value what a mitzvah is, what the opportunity of a mitzvah is. Like the story of the Vilna Gaon, which is a great story. When he was laying on his deathbed, the last few moments, he picked up a sittis and he said, "How much does the pure sittis cost?" 10 kopaks, whatever it is, and people don't pay attention. In a few minutes, to me, this will be priceless. After the neshama leaves, can't do any mitzvahs. So this is the opportunity. Don't waste time. Throw yourself into the mitzvah as much as you can, and treasure and embellish and relish that connection with the divine. Okay, key points. Story of the Mishkan is repeated numerous times in the Torah, 5 times. People repeatedly talk about matters they cherish, like the Yankees, right? It's Thursday. The accounts.
Excuse me?
Please don't curse the show. The accounts for the repetitiveness about the Mishkan, because it was critically important and cherished by God and the Jewish people. We know this idea from one of Rashi's previous comments earlier in Genesis. We must be passionate about our Judaism, and in such a way that it becomes a matter we're constantly talking about. I mean, you have to an extreme. You have Rabbah, who is a rabbi from the Talmudic times, said he spoke Torah 24/7, all his waking hours. That when the angel of death came to take his soul, he couldn't. He was always learning Torah. That's what it means to be fully engaged. Have a good